your girl Wakeji Kamore, and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Alright guys, we have been studying the book of First Kings, and today we are going to dive into First Kings chapter 11, which I'm going to be reading from the NLT version. If you're here for the very first time, please remember to subscribe. Please remember to hit the notification bell and to share this recording with someone else so that someone else can also benefit from this. So the last chapter that we read, which was chapter 10, the Queen of Sheba had come to visit Solomon, and we saw how she had come to test him with questions, but King Solomon was just like on top of his game. We saw how much her wealth he had accumulated, and today we are going to see just like the wives that he had accumulated as well, and what happened after that. All right, let's see. It says, now King Solomon loved many foreign women. Besides Pharaoh's daughter, he married women from Moab, from Ammon, from Edom, from Sidon, and from among the Hittites. And the Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, you must not marry them because they will turn your hearts to their gods. Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyway. He had not one, not two, not three, but 700 wives of royal birth. By royal birth is that like he married princesses or daughters of kings or daughters of royal families. And he was doing this to make treaties with these nations, but he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. And in fact, they did turn his heart away from the Lord. Just like the Lord had said, if you guys marry people from foreign places, they will turn your hearts away from the Lord. And it says that in fact, they actually did. In Solomon's old age, they turned his heart to worship other gods instead of being completely faithful to the Lord his God, as his father David had been. Solomon worshipped the Ashtoreth, the gods of the Sidonians, the Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. And in this way, Solomon did what was evil in the Lord's sight, and he refused to follow the Lord completely, as his father had done. On the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, he even built a pagan shrine for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and another for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. Solomon built such shrines for all the foreign wives to use for burning incense and sacrificing to their gods. I'm imagining like if you have 700 wives from, I don't know, however number of tribes that they had come from or other nations that they had come from, and now you have built all these shrines. Like how many shrines are we even talking about here? Yes, Solomon Pia Holy to do. The Lord was very angry with Solomon, for his heart had turned away from the Lord and the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. He had warned Solomon specifically about worshipping other gods. But Solomon did not listen to the Lord's command. So now the Lord said to him, since you have not kept my covenant and have disobeyed my decrees, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you and give it to another of your servants. But for the sake of your father David, I will not do this while you are still alive. I will take the kingdom away from your son. And even so, I will take away the entire kingdom. I will let him be the king of only one tribe, for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, my chosen city. I like the fact that God likes to keep promises. Like, I promised your father David that someone from his family will always sit on the throne. But guess what? Even if I'm keeping that promise, he's only going to be reigning over one tribe. And then all the others, I'm going to take them away and give them to your servant. And we're going to see how that happens. All right. Verse 14. Then the Lord raised Ahijah Edomite, a member of Edom royal family, to be Solomon's adversary. Years before David had defeated Edom, Joab, his army commander, had stayed to bury some of the Israelite soldiers who died in the battle. While there, they killed every male in Edom. Joab and the army of Israel had stayed there for 6 months, killing them. But Hadad and a few of his father's royal officials escaped and headed for Egypt. Hadad was a just a boy at that time. They set out for Midian and went to Paran, where others joined them. Then they traveled to Egypt and went to Pharaoh, who gave them a home, food, and some land. Pharaoh grew very fond of Hadad, and he gave him his wife's sister in marriage, the sister of Queen Taphanes. Ay, majina ni ngumu. She bore him a son named Genubath. Taphanes raised him in Pharaoh's palace among Pharaoh's own sons. When the news reached Hadad in Egypt that David and his commander Joab were both dead, he said to Pharaoh, "Let me return to my own country." "Why?" Pharaoh asked him. "What do you lack here that makes you want to go home?" "Nothing," he replied. "But even so, please let me return home." God also raised Rezon, son of Eliada, as Solomon's adversary. Rezon had fled from his master, King Hadaezer of Zobah, and he became the leader of the gang of rebels. After David conquered Hadaezer, Rezon and his men fled to Damascus, where he became king. And Rezon was Israel's bitter adversary for the rest of Solomon's reign, and he made trouble, just as Hadad did. Rezon hated Israel intensely and continued to reign in Aram. Or another rebel leader was Jeroboam, son of Nebat, one of Solomon's own officials. He came to the town of Zeredah in Ephraim, and his mother was Zeruah, a widow. This is the story behind his rebellion. Solomon was rebuilding the supporting terraces and repairing the walls of the city of his father David. Jeroboam was a very capable young man. When Solomon saw how industrious he was, he put him in charge of the forced labor for the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh and the descendants of Joseph. One day, as Jeroboam was leaving Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah from Shiloh met him along the way. Ahijah was wearing a new cloak, and the two of them were alone in the field. And Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 of these pieces, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I'm about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and I will give 10 of the tribes to you. But I will leave him with one tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. For Solomon has abandoned me and worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Molech, the god of Ammonites. He has not followed my ways and has done what is pleasing in my sight. He has not obeyed my decrees and regulation as David his father did. But I will not take the entire kingdom from Solomon at this time. For the sake of my servant David, the one whom I have chosen and who obeyed my commands and decrees, I will keep Solomon as leader for the rest of his life. But I will take the kingdom away from his son and give 10 of the tribes to you. His son will have one tribe, so that the descendants of David and my servants will continue to reign, shining like the lamp in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen to be the place for my name. And I will place you on the throne of Israel, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. If you listen to what I tell you and follow my ways and do whatever I consider to be right, if you obey my decrees and commands as my servant David did, then I will always be with you. I will establish an enduring dynasty for you as I did for David, and I will give Israel to you. But because of Solomon's sin, I will punish the descendants of David, though not forever. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but he fled to King Shishak of Egypt and stayed there until Solomon died. The rest of the events of Solomon's reign, including all his deeds and his wisdom, are recorded in the book of the Acts of Solomon. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, named for his father. Then his son Rehoboam became the next king. Oh wow, that's a bit of a long chapter. But I hope you guys understand what has happened there. Solomon had many wives that turned his heart to God. God warns Solomon about worship and reveals the plan to tear away the kingdom. But sasa Solomon si hajiski kufanya vitu zenye God amesema afanye. So God raises enemies for Solomon, and they just start bringing troubles, and God promises to tear the kingdom, like 10 tribes huku, 1 tribe huku, and give it to Jeroboam. All right, so one of the things that I have learned from this chapter is that God keeps his promise and also fulfills his decrees and consequences for our sins. Like akisema, like when God says, when you follow me, this will happen. And he says, when you don't follow me, this will happen. When you actually don't follow him, whatever he said will actually happen. Like he fulfills his promises both ways, not just the good ones, but even the consequences of your disobedience. And then God wants the heart of his people totally devoted to him. He doesn't want to be sharing devotion with other people. So the reflection questions for this day would be, what in your life is trying to turn your heart away from God? It could not be many wives like Solomon, but it could be something else that is turning your heart away from God. Tafakari hayo. Number 2, when you are acting in where are you acting in direct disobedience to God's clear instruction? Is it a habit? Is it an activity? Is it a relationship that is negatively affecting your relationship with God? So where are you acting in direct disobedience to God's clear instructions, like what Solomon did? The clear instruction was, don't marry from other nations, but he went and did that anyway. But even us, where is it? Is it a habit? Is it an activity? Is it a relationship that is turning you away from your relationship with God? This has been your girl Wakeji Kamore, and this is Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. See you tomorrow.